Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, we will be discussing primarily, Inanimate Insanity. Yes, I was debating, right, that Inanimate Insanity the other day dropped the remaster of episode 7, and I haven't watched the season 1 remasters. However, I was kind of debating, should I do this? Does it count as a new episode? Could I skip it? However, I think that, look, it's kind of interesting, because here's the deal. I don't remember Inanimate Insanity season 1. It's gonna be straight up. I don't remember. And I feel like a lot of other people who analyze it, they do a righteous, pretty righteous comparison, right? Season 1 old versus season 1 new, right? And they have that perception, right? However, me, who pretty much just don't remember how any of these episodes went, like, I have a vague understanding, but really don't. I was curious, okay, what would I actually think of the episodes if I don't remember the original variant from season 1, which I don't. I watched them, don't get me wrong, I watched them, it's just I watched them 8 years ago, I literally don't remember. So, I wanted to give this a go without having watched it to see, does it just from a completely by itself perspective hold up, or does it falter? Because I know that it might be a little controversial. Well, we're gonna have to find out. All right, we're gonna start off here with episode 1 of the Inanimate Insanity season, which I don't. Is this not a playlist? It's not a playlist, bro. Really? They didn't make a playlist for the remasters? What? What are they doing? Are they throwing? Wait, they didn't even make a playlist for season 4. Yo! What are y'all doing? AnimationEpic. Come on now. What? Lock in. Make some fucking playlists. Adam, what are you doing? Alright, fine. I'll just go by the fucking YouTube video. Alright, we're gonna start off here with episode 1, with season 1, episode 1, Remastered, The Crappy Cliff. Go. Alright, so that is The Crappy Cliff, season 1, episode 1, remastered of Inanimate Insanity. So, gonna be 100% honest, this is the only one that I have actually watched in the past. When it originally released, I wasn't doing catch-up, I wasn't doing anything. I checked this out to see what was going on. I compared it to the first episode, so this is the one that I remember the most. So, let's set ourselves back to that time. And let's try to get the question out of the way. Should Inanimate Insanity Season 1 be remastered, right? Because there is, in a way, when with BFDI, with II, it's kind of a cool, sense of, growing, of, underdog. We're like, look, this show wasn't high quality, but it managed to turn into this big thing. Look at how cool that is, right? And you can see an evolution outside of just the show's universe as well, right? Which is kind of one of those things that a lot of people, I think, found kind of saddening to see the remaster, because it's like, yo, but, we're removing this, right? Which makes sense. I see it. My personal opinion on should I Season 1 have a remaster is that I think that, I understand if it didn't 100% for those reasons. However, I think that it can. Because the thing about it is that, while, in my opinion, a show like BFDI original, I think it holds itself up pretty decently, right? It keeps itself super consistent in its standard, which means that, even though it's not a very high standard, it still keeps going along it forever, and you can get used to it. However, I think that, the standard of II Season 1 is not only a step below, it is much more crude, it is much, it's just rougher in every single category, to the point where, II Season 1 is just kind of hard to watch. I'm gonna be honest. There were times in the past where I've tried to be like, oh, let me restart II, see if I remember what the hell happened to Taco or whatever, right? But I really, it's hard. it's hard to do, because like it's just a mountain, right? So like we end up having. So like I think that a remaster is pretty decent. You'll notice that of course this has a different art style to every other IA. This is like kind of a interesting little blend of some animation style. Like it's pretty fluid. However, it tries to have like, especially with the mouth work, keep them a little bit more goofy, a little bit more silly, right? Because it has an interesting challenge of like it has to be good. No, because like the future show references how it's bad, right? So that means that like it has to kind of look in a way where they can make fun of it while at the same time being high quality, right? And it kind of complicates itself, so it has to ask to be a little simpler and a little other stuff. But yeah, we have some interesting mentions. So first of all, the crappy cliff. So basically, as far as I'm yes, the original episode, you jump off a 60-foot cliff and you have to land on clean spring water, otherwise you'll land in elephant feces. However, in this episode, what they do is they'll just make it that you'll never land because they've removed the poop. They've removed the poop. They removed the toilet humor. How dare they? But yeah, no, they removed the toilet humor, which I mean, it's fair. Like again, you like. They have to be kind of careful with this, you know. Where at the same time, however, I do hope that they do manage to still, you know, keep like they need to add a joke for jokes they remove, because the thing that they do is like, okay, I understand that elephant feet is kind of weird, right? And like that joke might turn people off. However, even though despite that, you need to sprinkle in a different joke somewhere else, right? Because if you don't, you're going to have problems where like you're going to end up having a remaster that like removes all the weird jokes that however still gave it a personality, and then like slowly the show loses personality, because if the show loses personality, it kind of ends up, you know, just kind of being generic fluff, right? Like it still needs to find itself a way to have personality while removing any problematic bits from season 1. Light bulb and light bulb and beep 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 and balloon, and then being the ones that are safe. Everybody else falls off until bomb explodes them all. What else happens? Oh yeah, an interesting moment is how light bulb ends up waving random in the middle of the episode. If I'm not mistaken, that's because of the time travel episode in season 2, right, where they end up kind of going in there and then light bulb kind of waves at their future self. Like I think that was the detail. So they made that function like nowadays, which is really interesting. But yeah. Alright, that is episode 1 pretty much. Let's head over into episode 2 and the start of the episode I haven't watched, so we'll be able to give a proper opinion on. Let me find what it is. Episode 2 is titled A Lemony Lesson. It's also significantly longer. Here we go. Alright, that is Season 1, Episode 2 Remastered of Inanimate Insanity. And yeah, I mean, I was just imagining, I was like, whoa, I don't remember anything. Like, I was thinking, like, I thought I remembered a little bit, but then I started thinking, I was like, damn, I don't remember anything that happened. Like, nothing. Like, zero. I literally don't remember the challenge. Did I ever make it to even episode 2? There, the rewatch. I don't think I did. I might have started at like 7 or something. I might start with like Bo. Like, no, that's crazy. Cause that's yeah, I probably was not exactly remembering. But yeah, we have an episode. I'm still trying to decipher if this art style is a good idea. I don't know. This art style is really interesting because like it does look kind of season 1-esque. It doesn't though. Does it? It looks different. Like that's kind of like, that's like all I can muster. Does it look like it would fit for a season 1? I feel like it kind of does. It depends on a few characters. I feel like a few assets might be a bit designed. However, for like a character like the current light bulb, I feel like it ends up working pretty well, and simplified taco as well, right? However, for some others, I feel like it maybe doesn't fit 1,000,000%. Like I don't know, like paper or something that's pretty much just regular. That's just pretty much exactly the same, right? But like yeah, so they end up picking teams. And they do this team picking process that they also did in episode two, we have, of course, some interesting, like situations having to kind of decipher personalities a little bit, right? Like what personality the characters are, like how different are they? And they're really not that different to their current counterparts, I would say. I mean, of course, their current counterparts, they're just a bit more general complexity to them, right? Kind of like how characters like Salt and Pepper are at their absolute most default, right? Lightbulb has pretty much no idea who Paintbrush is, but they both still kind of play along. Especially Paintbrush kind of, it seems to play along a little bit more to gags than a regular Paintbrush would. They're having somebody like Balloon, who's still very much so protesting. Of course, the biggest difference is Taco, who goes from being super, like, it just ends up being very, very different in season 1, of course, because they were doing, they were playing a facade or something. They can apparently only speak French, which is a detail I know about. I forgot about it. I remember to say, oh yeah, you could speak French. Wait, you could speak French? I don't know. I need to see some Taco French ASAP. But yeah, they end up picking Paper. Knife is a little bit more goofy. I feel like Knife gets more serious as time goes on, but Knife in this episode is quite goofy. So we end up having Team Epic and Team Chicken Leg, which is pretty cool. And then we have ourselves the challenge, which is to pick up the most lemons from the tree. Pick them up and put them in a basket. What I think of this is a challenge that, I mean, it certainly was. It's written very much so, like, expectedly, right? Like, I feel like, in a way, okay, hear me out. Alright. In a way, I believe that early episodes of things, right, doing the ultra basic tropes, right, and then eventually getting those done out of the way, that way the new things that you gotta do eventually end up being more original, I believe is pretty suitable. It's pretty okay. So I have in the episode that's like, ooh, it's looking like a wash, and then OMG or OMG, it's a surprise last second comeback. It's like, okay, all right, we saw that. So now that we did that, we can do something else, So that's kind of one of those things. So I don't mind, even like early II doing that, and also, things like early II doing that is also probably just a good idea to do that on a freaking objective standpoint of production, where it's like, imagine this, it's 15 years ago, these people have probably never written an episode of a thing in their lives, so we gotta kind of just figure ourselves out, so writing kind of more basic ended up kind of working out, because it's like, at the end of the day, you can do kind of that stuff a little bit more, and it ends up a bit better overall. Which is definitely one of the strong suits, right? Because it makes kind of like, same thing goes with something like BFDI, right? Like, it makes those earlier episodes kind of look pretty safe. However, they kind of were like, okay, I see, right? Like, it doesn't hit you immediately with something odd that gets a viewer to walk away. So I think that's why shows like II or BFDI can get a lot of people into it, right? Like, it's one of the most interesting questions that I think prop up during object shows, is that, like, how have so many people managed to get into them, even modernly, right? Because if you think about it, most people, they'll get into it by watching something like BFDI, right? And the thing about watching something like BFDI is that, like, I feel like nowadays, like, majority of people, okay, I would say, will tell you that BFDI or season 1 is not good. It's not good, right? Like, comparatively speaking, it's absolutely not good. However, everybody, nowadays, not everybody, however, a very large number of people were hooked by original BFDI and then watched it, and then only now their perception of it is to say that it wasn't good, right? When they originally got into it, they were like, this is it, right? And I think it's kind of one of those things about, like, it's about the comparatively speaking, right? Where when you see BFDI and you think this is all there is to it, and then you see it improve, right? And then eventually it's kind of like things. Kind of when you put a frog in boiling water, right? Like you start off on the low quality, so that way the people get hooked on the low quality, and then they start slowly cranking up the quality, and it's like whoa. But then it's hard to go back, right? Like it's kind of that whole situation, which I think is pretty interesting. I think it's cool. So yeah, I vibe with it. There's interesting goofy faces that get made as well with this animation style that the season 1's doing. Of course, Taco exhibits the most of them. You'll see Mephone exhibit them as well. Yeah, and you can see like a mild amount of like Mephone season 1-ness that has to play, because of course we know in the lore that this is Mephone's show that they were making, right? So you can see them kind of try-harding at presenting, you know, like you can see them like being super kind of chatting about the action, like, oh guys, it seems like they're gonna lose, right? And something like that, when like you see it slowly as the challenges kind of pick up, you'll see that like the hosts, like Mephone, especially someone like season 3, for example, you'll see it kind of take a step back, you know, not really talking over the action as it's happening, when instead of it in something like this, you do end up seeing Mephone kind of talk around the action, right? Kind of going like, okay, yo, solid. So yeah, then the challenge ends, and then we have an interesting thing happen. The interesting thing that happens is that we end up having the elimination time here already, as part of the episode, which is pretty smart, because of course this will be the start of the next episode, because there will be a voting card. However, this is probably pretty smart because you can have the elimination time there at the ending of the episode, which sets itself up in the same way that other episodes do, right, for season 2, for season 3, right, as well, where like the last part of the episode, the elimination, is also what they do in shows like Survivor, right, so it's pretty normal. And then not only that, you get to do that, and you don't have to do the voting screen. As you'll notice on a lot of shows that do remakes, you have this awkward voting screen moment where it's like, vote on what you want, except don't do that, this is a remaster, right? Like, you have to kind of do that whole weird thing, and you have to break the meta. But like, yeah, you can just put the elimination onto the episode, and then the next episode, like, you see, it's solid stuff. How many episodes? How many votes did this episode even have? The original episode to have? It had what? There was 6. No, I think it had like 7 total votes, which is, yes, it's not a lot, but hey, like, I don't know, when was the time span of this show releasing? Like, I should check. Hold on. Let me check if is there original, because I know that the current upload of the crappy clip is apparently not the upload of the crappy clip. April 1st, 2011. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, BFDI started in 2010, right? So that means that, like, BFDI was going for a while, but they were still kind of, you know, very much so in the mid-season. So I since kind of started around there. But yeah, I mean, like, at that point, it was just kind of hard to imagine, yo, there can be another one of these, right? And it also did the same tack of having episode 1 not introduce, not have a voting, so that way you can see if viewers are there, and then episode 2, you do it right. It took a lot of tips from BFDI, this did. But yeah, eventually, in a 1v1 on the platform, Knife versus Paper, Knife ends up throwing down a bunch of random shit at them, and proceeds to win, and that means that Paper gets eliminated. So it's officially time for episode 3. Let me check what it's called, because I yet again closed the page, as I tend to do. Episode 3 of the II Season 1 Remaster is titled The Arena of Death. Okay, go. Alright, that is episode 3 of Inanimate Insanity. So, we have ourselves some interesting things, you know, like Knife trying to yet again, you know, play around with weaklings, right, to try to take advantage of them and all that jazz, right, proper nap behavior. There are some interesting things that kind of go on with, like, this, is that, like, these are not remakes. remakes, right? There is a classic distinction that I feel like a lot of people might forget, is that this is a remaster rather than a remake. A remaster means that the thing is actually the same, it just looks better, right? They made it look better, they made it, they mastered it, but the thing itself is the same. This is a remaster, which means that the events that happen are theoretically supposed to be very similar, right? So that means that they can't, for example, rework the challenge so that everybody participated in them. No, they can't do that, even though that would probably just simply be a better idea, right? They make the voting explain on how the people who didn't do anything are safe, right? But be like more logical. However, they can't do that because it's not a remake, right? It's a remaster, which I think is pretty interesting. But anyways, we do indeed have ourselves the challenge. So the challenge is to throw rocks. 4 people on each team will be chosen to stand on a platform with a bucket of rocks. You have to throw at each, so until like each other fall. And if you do that, you will do the W. If you are the last team standing. So the 4 contestants per team get randomly chosen. So, the fellas that get chosen are nickel, baseball, knife, and paintbrush. Pretty solid set of contestants there on one team. And then the other team ends up having OJ, salt, pepper, and taco, which is a pretty rough combination because there's salt and pepper in there, right? However, thankfully, they do have the go-to, which is taco. Taco, just an absolute challenge master. Yeah, this is exactly the type of challenge that taco kind of excels. A challenge where you can't directly go up to taco, right? Like if taco's from afar, this type of taco can just kind of YOLO. You know, like it's kind of like and you'll notice that's a lot of how taco works, even nowadays to an extent, right? Like you'll notice taco gets majority of like the victories, even in season 2, right, when guiding microphone or whatever, from afar. You need to keep taco at an actual distance, and then taco becomes really good at whatever it is that she's doing. In this situation, it becomes way more complicated in like a proper situation. But yeah, either way, good stuff. Taco, who ends up YOLOing because the other team decides, let's all throw it at taco, that way they'll knock off, it's a good strategy. That's a good strategy. It focuses all of the efforts and makes it harder for one person to stay in, which means that there's a higher chance that one of them will get down. However, they just choose the wrong person, right? Nico ends up doing an epic kick that somehow boomerangs and hits Salt off, which gets Pepper to jump off because they're codependent. We end up having our final moment to beat after Paintbrush tries to save Nico, and they end up both falling, and then OJ dies after baseball throws at them, and they freaking die. We end up having baseball and Taco. Taco obviously wins that 1v1, which means that they win the challenge again. Taco is goated, and we now end up having ourselves the next the moment, right? We see it with a lot of like the humor as well that gets implemented with like Taco saying a random thing and then every character goes like, yes, very wise. But this was a joke that was done quite a bit. I'm not gonna lie, like this was a joke that this type of joke character that's obviously not saying something that makes sense or not saying anything too smart is something that they like I would love to do with like this Taco, or with like even Salt and Pepper, right? How their stories don't actually make any sense. Or like with Box, especially, right, with the inanimate Box, that everybody was like, oh my god, right? Like they did this gag a lot. BFDI never really did that much of this gag. Like, not to a massive extent, like a little bit, but not too much. But yeah, elimination. We end up having the cookies, but no, because it's pencils now. And the pencils are stupid, and then Pencil shows up and like, oh, and again, it's really interesting to like look at Pencil, because like Pencil in dude, okay. The thing about it is that this style, you don't notice how it's kind of, like, odd, you know, until you see a character not built for it. that way you see pencil, how pencil looks. Pencil looks weird. Because pencil is like, it's so one color, it's so one tone, which is how that asset would look. Because you'll notice that like the lighting is on the metal part at the top. So yes, it is a correct asset. It just is really interesting how like it just looks kind of weird because it wasn't built around it. So it ended up being interesting. I think the line was re-recorded for modernness as well, which I believe is true for everybody. Actually, I believe every line is re-recorded despite of their irrelevancy in terms of needing to be re-recorded. Right, like Taco's lines, like sour cream, I believe was also re-recorded despite the fact that it really didn't need to be. I did. I've heard that that it was, but I'm not 1,000,000% sure. But yeah, the fist thingy ends up being officially real. You know, the thing that kicks somebody out into the stratosphere. And indeed, the eliminated contestants to be baseball with 3 votes compared to 2. They did lose the 1v1 knife. I don't know. Knife's mildly mean. I feel like they're doing a solid with Knife about like mean character that's not necessarily acting rude. They act like kind of sneakily rude, right? I feel like they're doing that pretty solidly to keep Knife in the game despite being a little bit meaner. So I think they're doing that pretty well. But yeah, baseball gets out, which I mean, fair enough. They did throw the last one by jumping off, which wasn't super smart. And yeah, balloon pops. Alright, let's go to episode 4 Remastered. So the episode 4 Remaster is titled One Shot Wonder. Here we go. Yo, OMG, I'm so wrong about everything I've ever said. This is like the worst catch-up video ever. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they didn't do viewer voting. What? Wait, what? Oh, so the other members of the team voted. Yeah, they did do that. Wait, what? Oh my god, bro. Dude, you don't understand. I just got mass shook. I got shook up to the core. Yo, that's crazy, bro. Really? No. I mean, I guess that makes sense that it was 3-2. My knife wasn't getting out. But, like, what? Yo. That's like... Nah, I'm mind blown. I mean, I still think that what I said would have been smart if it was true. But, like, I'm just... completely incorrect. 1,000,000 times incorrect. That's bad. That's a bad one. That's a bad one. This is not the best recollection moment. Okay. Alright. How about this? I'm gonna make this official statement. Okay. Alright, hear me out. Official statement, and now for the entire future we will know about this statement, okay? And now for everything else that we say, you'll know this, okay? I am dumb as fuck. Okay? Alright, now you know. Now you have this knowledge, then now you can listen to it knowing that I am dumb. Okay? Alright, good. So we have the 4th episode of where we end up having some fellas. Nico is trying to assess their compatibility with Knife by seeing how if that Knife apparently, you know, how good of a friend they are. And Knife goes, "Hey, yo, I can make up some good s'mores." And then they freaking cook up Marshmallow, who dies. Of course, because they were turned into a s'more, which is not epic. They don't get revived though. No, can't do that. That's illegal. So instead, we end up having ourselves the challenge. So the challenge ends up being to have the freaking the slingshots, Angry Birds. I like how the example are Angry Birds as well, but yeah, you get to, if you can make it over the gorge with a slingshot throw, you will make it, and you can go to the second part of the challenge. Otherwise, if you fall into the void held by glitchy phones, you will be cooked, which is pretty bad. You're going to and Libel goes like, "No, I don't want to go to which is quite fun because Libel still does that. Lightbulb still does those like randomly perfect noise imitations. But yeah, I like how Balloon is interesting. I feel like Balloon, like, dude, Balloon in like season 1 was so tactics. You know, like, that was the pure tactics character. They were really bad at it, but they were really trying. Like, you know, they're like proper gonna have full tactics mode. Like, yes, I want to win. I want to form an alliance. I want to do secret plans. I want to do shit. Right? I mean, they're really, really, really poor at it. But like, they're like a thing. You know, like it's interesting. How that's like a detail. That's like a detail because like nowadays, you know, especially in style like season 3, like Balloon is way less tactics. You know, like Balloon is like way more kind of general relationship focused in the future rather than currently where it was very much so like challenge focused. So I mean, it's an interesting like reminder about what Balloon was, right? Because of course the main thing about Balloon is that, oh, you betrayed everybody and all that stuff, right? So like yeah, that's kind of that's like a detail that's important that we gotta you know, we gotta keep in mind. But yeah, then we end up having some fellas go over the slingshot. I find it interesting how like Salt gets sufficiently convinced by like Bomb snuggling up to them, but when Balooza was out, the pepper doesn't work, which again is interesting characterization. But yeah, it pretty much doesn't work. The only person that gets up right there is Marshmallow for Team Epic because knife through them. You know, the other people, they're not willing to go, and the people who do go end up falling. You know, these end up missing. And Lightbush, no. I keep saying Lightbrush. I know why I'm saying Lightbrush, and you know too. Okay, you know why I'm saying it. Paintbrush. Okay. But yes, Paintbrush ends up, yeeting a knife so high up that it ends up falling down on Balloon. Ends up being like an Omega problem. But Bomb manages to last second to be like, what? I'm not useless. And then they explode everybody. And they end up, that 2 people make it, which is Pickles and Taco, which end up flying over to the other direction. And then we end up having the last section, which is Tug of War. Taco gains full consciousness for one moment. Taco was like locked in. Was like, I have an IQ of 7, and I know that is black, not blue. And then proceeds to back again into normalcy. And then Pickles immediately, it doesn't clock that's happening at all. But yeah, they proceed to cry, which is, it's great stuff, you know. It's proper sounding like an angry bird. But I guess that's what you want. And yeah, so we officially get to vote. I know, right? Voting. Crazy. So, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I really forgot it. I know, I'm going to be fully honest. I did not remember this at all. Like, the fact that they didn't have your vote at the start. Again, it makes sense. Like, now that I think about it, yes, it does make sense. In the same way that BFDI 1A didn't do it for the sake of, like, you know, seeing if people were there. Inanimate Insanity would have needed a longer amount of time. Because at the end of the day, BFDI was a novelty. Inanimate Insanity, while still, you know, a relatively novel in the concept of doing another one, it wasn't quite, you know, it wasn't perfectly there. So it makes sense. It will take more time to develop. It will take more time to grow those people who watch it to then be able to open up voting, right? Like, at the end of the follow-along won't grow as fast as the normal one. So BFDI can do it immediately, especially because they have to introduce the concept because nobody was even imagining it. With this, people are imagining it. You just have to get them in. That way you can throw the voting. It makes sense. Like, I get it. I just like completely forgot about it. Anyways, yeah, from a quick check at the comments, apparently the last part and the phones going like glitchy, it's apparently because the scene corrupted and that was what was going on. So they have like a version of it where like apparently eventually they get dialed in and fall down. Probably in like the infinite hole thing, because let's be for real. Alright, I will make no assumptions about anything ever again, because I will be looking real stupid, and I managed to look extremely stupid in this video. So we're gonna keep it moving, alright, in what is probably, yeah, definitely one of my worst set of analysis, yeah. In episode 5 of Inanimate Insanity, the Stacker. Here goes. Alright, that is episode 5 of II Season 1 Remaster. So, in what is seeming like me not knowing absolutely anything, time to say another thing that I don't remember. Okay, so as far as I'm aware, I think that this is technically a combination of 2 episodes, right? Because didn't they do the debutante in episode 5.5? I think that's what they did, right? Like, I should check ASAP just to see. Because I know that episode 5.5 exists, right? Which means something. Yeah, yeah. This is like a, yeah, it's a different episode. So there's a combination of 2 videos, which does make a 10-minute episode. That's kind of why. But yeah, we get a bunch of initial interactions. You know, we get to see Salt a lot. I think that Salt is it's an interesting character to see, because like it really shines a light on like Salt, when like I feel like Salt has been kind of like very much so side characterized in latest II. Like really Salt right now isn't too interesting, you know. Like I feel like because they're kind of not in the competition in season 2, they didn't do that much, right? Like Salt is very much so not really a character being used that much, but like seeing Salt proper like in default mode with those default mannerisms, like it's kind of interesting, you know, because it's kind of like it's not what I necessarily remember. But yeah, Salt of VA does an excellent job. I'm not even gonna lie. But yeah, I like how the clouds just cry, man. This is such like how do you say it? Like childlike wonder to it in a way still. Despite the remake, I feel like they do keep a lot of that initial childlike wonder, how the characters kind of just scream themselves, like kind of just screaming before not too much stuff, right? Like Pepper and stuff, and Taco crying over nothing, and the Cloud crying over nothing, and Mifo not doesn't cry over nothing, but you can see how Mifo is still very much so in kind of overly excited mode, you know, like with those arm waving notions that get made, that like you end up seeing it a lot. So the show does still evoke a pretty solid situation. So it's elimination time. I still do think that it would still be a pretty good idea to have the elimination at the end, even if it was viewer voting, because again, that way you don't need to make a vote for blank, right? However, I mean, I guess one of those things, kind of like with the remaster, where it's like you don't want to deceive the audience, but at the same time, like you understand the vote happened in 2011, right? Like you don't, you know. But yeah, 265 votes is how many there were by this time. I don't think episodes were being made monthly. I think they were being made like every 2 months, right? I think like every bi-month, like bi-monthly. I don't, dude. You know, I don't remember. I know they came out, like, it wasn't perfect monthly. The thing about BFDI is I'm pretty sure BFDI kept itself up to perfect monthly. I don't think II kept itself up to perfect monthly. But, they did, like, alright. Yes, the character that ended up getting eliminated, ended up being Lightbulb with 64, votes. I have literally no idea why, but, like, you know, it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, look, 2011 voters who only had this to work with really I cannot judge their opinions at all, right? Like it's such a different universe. You know, that time is a different universe. Like the votes from there are 1,000,000% different than the votes that would be now. So yeah, Libo gets eliminated for apparently doing nothing in the challenge. I mean, yeah, but to be fair, a bunch of other people did nothing in the challenge. And then, like, and Libo, if they were flying across, would probably just fucking shatter, right? So it really wouldn't do too much, but, you know. We ended up having, yeah, Marshmallow being the second one, safe. I swear since the first episode of the remaster, that, like, somewhere around episode 4, like, I swear this, like, shadow, this, like, lighting hit that the Mifone has, I swear it got way stronger. Like, I feel like that light shining onto him is, like, way more. But, yeah, we ended up having the dolls removed. Yes, I remember these dolls. That knife eventually decides to keep with him. And I also remember Idiotic Island. Yes, Idiotic Island. Where the contestants stay in this one set of bars. And the characters conveniently don't realize that they can probably just squeeze by out of there. But yeah, characters arrive. They don't get revived, so if they die in there, it's over. Paper's starting to go mad. Is this where evil paper comes in? I feel like this is where evil paper comes in, right? Because it's like paper starts to go insane, and then evil paper comes in, like something along those lines. I don't remember. Like I'm trying to see if I can clock what happens again. I clock what happens in II again, but I really don't remember, man. And it's like, bro, why do I not remember? But yes, we ended up having the challenge be to stack 3 golf balls on top of each other, which is apparently not hard, but also not easy. You cannot stack 3 golf balls on top of each other, I think. Is that possible? Can you do that in real life? I have never seen somebody try. I don't think it's possible. But yes, they end up doing it. Apparently, only the bottom 2 from each team will be up for elimination instead to make a 4 set. That way both teams have some sort of damage to them. So we end up having some interesting things occur. We end up having Taco. Yeah, of course you can kind of see Taco kind of like being smarter than you think. That way Taco's starting to show off a little bit more than just goofiness, while still trying to keep up the air. Knife ends up trying to be safe. They end up giving up on their own attempt to be safe. I find it interesting because it's like they could be trying to set up that Knife doesn't get eliminated here, because Knife isn't safe. However, at the same time, they like. You could be like, oh, but it wasn't their fault, they weren't safe. Right? It was somebody else's fault, they were trying to take him down. Right? But at the same time, it's like, I do think that that Knife probably would have gotten eliminated in an episode like this, right? Because it's like, technically, yes, their stack wasn't knocked off by anybody else, so you can't really pin the blame. Like, they knocked off their own stack and then try to rebuild it. So, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. Anyways, and then we have the 5.5 section where Adam shows up. Yes, Adam, the producer of Inanimate Insanity. So I'm trying to remember what's going on with Adam. I remember that Adam had like a robot version of them made, I think, at Meeple or something. But yes, this Adam is just a person. But yeah, they're trying to get the Guacamole for the next challenge, and in the meantime, they will introduce the characters for the show. In the meantime, the last few people to be safe end up being freaking Paintbrush for Knife's team, and then I think Balloon on the other one. So we end up having Marshmallow, Pepper, freaking Knife, and Taco be up for elimination. Wait a minute, Taco's up for elimination? Wait, did Taco do somebody else's thing? Wait a minute. Oh, wait, the Taco did Pickle's thing. Oh my god, yes. Okay. That's true. Yeah, they did do that. Wait. Taco is sure. Tackle is sure as pickle is shit. What is this bro saying? Okay, I don't know. I got confused. I thought Taco was safe. Wait, what? No, Pickle was safe, and then Taco didn't do their own thing. Okay, interesting. That's random. But okay then. What else? We actually have the introduction of the characters. I mean, we know that Apple should be the one that joins, theoretically speaking. So yeah, I think it's really interesting how these characters end up being chosen, because this is like pre-BFDIA, right? Which means that like we end up having like I wonder if this is after or before the fabled BFDI debut episode. I feel like it's after, but it's kind of interesting because we have certain characters, right, that you can see prop up as well, right? Because it's like, would they really have had Magic 8, and would they really have had Dictionary in there at the time of like when BFDI had those? Because BFDI had 8-Ball and then also Book as recommended characters as part of that BFDI like debut video. Like that's kind of like, would they really have accepted those? I don't know, but maybe they would have. I guess I guess we don't know. I guess we don't know. But like I think it probably did, which makes it a really interesting situation. But yeah, I mean, Apple should theoretically join here because of course we know about Apple's antics in the world. And yeah, that is the episode 5 remaster. Oh yeah, sick ass remix by the way there on didnt. Like bro, freaking Kevin MacLeod remix on the beat. I like how Kevin MacLeod music. To be fair to Kevin MacLeod, okay, despite being an AI ambassador or whatever, to be fair to Kevin MacLeod music, it has stood the test of time. It has stood the test of very, 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 very long time. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it still kind of fits for anything that's like mildly goofy, and a lot of the more unknown tracks just fit in general on anything. So yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, alright, so next up is episode 6, War de Guacamole. I kind of remember this being an episode that happened. Let me remember more about what happened by watching the remake. Go. Alright, it's time for episode 6, season 1 remaster of Inanimate Insanity. I said those words in the most random possible order in which I could say them. But yes, we have the Guacamole episode. So we end up having yet again knife trolling a little bit. Taco yet again kind of debating. You can see Taco kind of half debating like, yo, should I be goofy? Should I not be goofy? I feel like it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think Taco, like, to be fair, yeah, Taco was definitely playing the dumb game pretty well. At this time, you know, like you can kind of tell. You can really see it with how Taco ends up kind of like play an awkward understanding of things, but also not. But then randomly coming in with the sprinkle in of trolling. Like, Taco's a troller. Taco's literally trolling the entire competition, bro. Like, who let Taco do all this? But yeah, apparently, friggin' Marshmallow got a fist thingy off of Walmart. They already made knockoffs and knocked the knife all the way over. Not to Idiotic Island, but it's not the strongest variant or something. But yeah, it's the elimination. So the elimination ends up happening where we end up having the elimination time jingle. The elimination time jingle has already been there for a bit, but yes, it is not an earworm. It is, however, pretty iconic in the way that it kind of works. Like, it's very BFDI at its core, that elimination time theme, right? Like, da cake at stake, elimination time, You see, it's kind of like take the homework, copy it a little bit, right? Like, you know, jingle done entirely a cappella, right? Like, it was definitely taking some massive inspo. However, at the end of the day, right, like, it ends up being pretty iconic because it's super easy, right? It's super recognizable. In the same way that a song's pretty recognizable, but yeah, like, it's very, very nice. We end up having both Marshmallow and Taco be safe pretty early. They get some very strong leaves, and then Pepper and Knife come in. Knife's like, "Yo, if you put in the leaf, we're not gonna get eliminated, right?" But Pepper's like, "No, you're gone." And then yes, but Knife does end up being eliminated. They try to get Marshmallow to go in. The fist puts them back, pats them on the head. I wonder if that was part of the original episode. I have no idea. Because that's a cool scene. That's a cool detail that I don't know if they would have made. But yeah, Knife says bye bye, and then we end up having our final 11 because we eventually have ourselves a challenge with the new fellas. To decide who will join, you end up having a paintball contest. If you get shot, you are out, and the last person standing wins. Nobody really does too much. Teddy Bear kind of YOLOs everybody, so then the main idea kind of ends up being dodge Teddy Bear, and nobody is really very capable of dodging Teddy Bear, except Apple. Apple's the only one who manages to dodge Teddy Bear. You know, everybody else kind of ends up not really realizing. A couple of fellas try some interesting tactics, right? Like the TV being like, "No, look, it's fellow teddy bears. This fellow bears. Don't you love them?" But like, no, it's Teddy Bear does not have a family. So they end up getting rid of them, and then we end up having Dictionary, who I think has the. I don't know if this. This is definitely the same. This is definitely Book's voice. Like, this Dictionary voice is definitely the same as Book's voice. However, I don't know if this is like one of those things where like it takes it's a recreated line, or if it's the freaking we just took a line from BFDI and used it here. We could have, however, I don't know. I feel like this show has been pretty solid, pretty consistent, and actually like the deciphering that people should do their lines again. So like for Taco and stuff, for example. So my idea is that it was probably recorded the same way that like Pencil's line was recorded, right, by Michael. So yeah. They dip, and then we end up having some last moments. Belle being like, Teddy Bear, how about we take a moment, we take a breather, and we relax, right? We get here this Belle and Teddy Bear interaction, which is really interesting to see, of course, with the current context of Season 4, where Teddy Bear is massively grieving Belle's not arriving with them. However, nobody else really knew about Belle, so they end up dipping. And like this is the type of interaction that like we don't know how those two were like as a dynamic. However, you can kind of see it, right? It was kind of like you end up having this ferocious teddy bear, right, who's just got massive anger, massive rage, wants to let it out. However, then you have this Belle that's super chilled out, not afraid like the other people. So they end up kind of acting as this calming presence. They can ding and everything, right, and it helps out. And it helps balance it, like you can really feel. It's a similar dynamic. They do this dynamic a lot. You'll notice. They're actually big fans of this dynamic when they have a super calm character. That's what they do, because what they did with Candle as well. Kind of how Candle and Silver Spoon, as well as Candle and Yin Yang. Candle be out here getting multiple ships in one season. Like the dynamics, right, where it's like anger character, like rage induced character who's like constantly annoyed or constantly angry, and then this super calm presence that's not afraid to just quiet it down and whip, and by having a completely different energy, it kind of entices the younger person, let me try this out. And that is very similar to the dynamic that goes on here, right, where Belle ends kind of relaxing Teddy Bear, and therefore when you see Season 4 Teddy Bear be all super chaotic, like you can kind of like see where it comes from, right? Because there's not that force of relaxation that was originally there for somebody like Teddy Bear. So I end up losing it, which I think is really interesting, that from this scene you can acquire so much of how that dynamic might have worked. It might not have worked like that, but I think it's a very solid connection to how it does. However, don't trust anything that I say. I'm the person who forgot that there wasn't voting in the show. So they end up dipping. And eventually, after Apple dodges Teddy Bear for 1 million hours, Teddy Bear gets tired, and Apple shoots them at the very end, and manages to join. They will join the winning team of the next challenge. The next challenge being a friggin' relay race with a baton. Where we end up having a set of hops, a set of a climb, and then a guacamole dive, based presumably on the 3 challenges so far. So, no, well, 3 of the previous challenges, because those are the ones for the rock game, and the guacamole is kind of like, oh, it's the cliff, right? I don't know what the climbing one could have been, though, so I don't really know. The 4th step is walking over the bridge. I mean, I guess you could consider that if you think that it's the cliff. Some cool animation details with how, like, Apple slams in the example, and everything, but, yeah. So, we end up having, I wonder, you just know that, like, I wonder if it's, if the dirt that Nick will fall into, it's Season 1, so I don't want to be surprised that was elephant feces back in Season 1, because I know they removed the mentions of it, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, let's see what we end up having here. We have to add. It's a ball. This is one of the greatest ads ever made. I don't know. Was this re-recorded? The quality literally sounds lower quality. The quality of the microphone, sorry. Like I kind of hope it wasn't. In a way, I know that needs to be OG. That if OG better for that stuff. OG end up going into the guacamole to find it. They do end up finding it, and then the guacamole it up, which makes them kind of dizzy. Marshmallow ends up running the hell away. They end up at the very last second getting guacamole on them as OJ falls, but they do end up winning the challenge. How would a marshmallow with guacamole taste? Probably not good. I haven't tried it. I know somebody has tried it. There's one person out there in this world that ate a marshmallow with guacamole on top of it because it was part of Season 1 of Inanimate Insanity. and I really want to know that person's opinion. How was it? Was it good? Like, I need to know. But yeah, so Team Epic, the trio, ends up getting Marshmallow. No, and then they're getting Apple. Sorry. Then in the meantime, we ended up having the decision that the people who voted Nikley ended up actually that those votes are going to count against Nickel, because you get what they mean. So instead of doing that, we ended up so that means that they get eliminated and Lightbulb remains into the show, which is the thing that they did. Yo, when did they invent voting codes? Yo, when did they do that? When did they do that? Because obviously that's the solution to the problem. But when did they invent voting codes, bro? Like, when did they do that? Like, come on. Like, this is something. Because I don't know, man. Like, I'm trying to fake. Yo, does Wiki tell me? Yo, does it tell me? I don't know. I have no idea. Gonna be absolutely for real. Okay, I don't know. I don't know, but like, I wonder what, like, cause like, yeah, that was a thing as well. Also, I think in the BFDI voting, but yeah, I mean, yeah, just have that's like, yo, chat. People of nowadays obviously just have voting codes. I mean, it's so obvious, right? Just have voting codes. They hadn't discovered it back in the day. It's kind of like Discovery of Fire, right? You don't know about it till it's there, and then it becomes second nature, right? But yeah, Lightbulb is back though, and I don't mind. But yeah, that the Team 7 ended up being UF. Yeah. Who's getting eliminated? I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to find out. In the future, while in Idiotic Island, Nicholas playing with the ball. I saw one comment. I was going down the comment just in case there's something important that I missed majorly, right? Because I feel because that's the thing that I have to kind of keep in mind with these videos. To kind of check to make sure. Is that somebody pointed out as one of the top comments that that this Nickel is so much more like BFDI Nickel? Yeah, actually, that's very true. This Nickel is very BFDIA Nickel core, like very. It's so much more. Like, I know it. Like it has so much more DNA in common, which I think is really interesting. Just the Nickel being so much more silly. It's so much more BFDI core. Like, yeah. I wonder if that's on accident. I don't know. That's interesting though. Okay. And it's time for the latest episode of the Big Old E. Sugar Rush Remastered. Here goes. Alright, that is episode 7 of Inanimate Insanity Season 1 Remastered on the AnimationEpic YouTube channel. So, it is also, of course, the latest one released 2 days ago, of course. And yeah, we have our initial scene with Pickles, hanging out with Pickle, the cucumber, and coming in with the sandwiches on a picnic, which however they forget the sandwiches. But you know who shows up as well over that? MePhone 4S. Remember that guy? Yes, of course I remember that guy. MePhone 4S is iconic. Yes, this starts the gag that it did around season 1 and season 2 about how, of course, the Me phones like every year started to become a thing, right? As they released in real life, they started kind of propping up in Inanimate Insanity throughout the first batch of years. So that, like MePhone 4S, and then eventually in season 2, right, they have a MePhone 7 or MePhone 6S or whatever it's called, right? And like those ended up being kind of a thing. However, yeah. MePhone 4S gets to see it. Let's see MePhone 4S without glasses, with something that we don't get to see often at all. MePhone 4S without glasses, though, low-key looking kind of interesting. I kind of do like those eyes. Those are some pretty good eyes. They look very similar stylistically, though. I feel like MePhone 4S, didn't MePhone 4S look different than MePhone? Not really that much in terms of, like, the actual body. So, I guess not. But either way, we end up having some situations with the first of all, the voting, the contestant voting. So the contestant voting is there for this episode. Viewers don't get to choose nothing. We end up having ourselves the voting where people end up, Salt and Pepper end up voting Balloon, and then the trio betrays Balloon, and Balloon's like, what? I got betrayed? That's crazy. Why'd I do that? but then it turns out that the actual reason is that it's that Balloon's not mad. I said the Balloon was extremely tactical, which yes, the Balloon was extremely tactical player. More than I could even realistically expected, right, in season 1. You know, they're really trying to play the game, you know, trying to do alliance, trying to do bullshit. Again, they were failing. However, they were playing they were really playing the game. However, in the way where they really care about it and get really pissed, right? It's kind of like, for example, you know, when you play like basketball, right, and then like you get really into basketball, right, and the thing about it is that, however, if you are super into it, you're gonna start getting super mad super fast, right, as your like teammates and stuff in a game of basketball or in any game. Right? In any game that's there, you're going to start getting mad much more easily and calling people useless and saying they're not helping out the team if you care about it, which Balloon very clearly was caring a lot about it, which means that they were like calling people useless and morons and everything, despite them being perfectly suitable because they weren't exactly 100% what they were looking for, right? Which is the situation that was kind of transpiring there. They don't get a great montage, and Balloon gets eliminated. Fair enough. Be nicer next time. And yeah, you get to see Taco yet again, kind of clocking in with Pickles. I mean, this is an interesting dynamic. I'm in to see more. Like, see more Pickles is so interesting because, like, dude, like seeing especially late season 2, I was like, bro, who is Pickles again? I low-key forgot. So seeing Pickles more properly act like a character, like it's kind of interesting to see, because Pickles really doesn't get to do much in modern II. But yeah, so let's see what else do we have. To be fair to the last clip of Balloon in the montage, them hitting Taco does actually get them to win that challenge, by the way, just saying, because otherwise they wouldn't have speed out all of the freaking things. But yeah, we end up having MePhone 4S apparently try to get in with Cheesy, which, however, tells them to stand by the other people to meet MePhone 4, the fellows who, of course, burned down in the explosion. Wait a minute, what did happen to those fellas? Oh yeah, the explosive paintballs, yes. The 3D car hitting Cheesy is kind of very funny. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wish that it stayed on screen for a little longer. They cut it out for the comedic effect, but low-key the comedic effect of it just being a 3D car was enough. But yes, the duo now, because of course they got rid of Balloon, end up getting Taco and Pickles into their alliance, and then we end up having the challenge, which is not trick-or-treating because there's nothing there. So instead they're going to just simply get a billion candies there, and then what are they going to do? They're simply going to, pick up all the candy, do everything. As the challenge. So they end up doing pretty well. Apple ended up just picking up tons of garbage and being like, yo, this is candy right here, look at it, just eat it. And then they eat it and try it. Apple's apparently capable of eating a lot of things. And then Salt and Pepper decide that they're on a diet today, so they're gonna be on a diet together and not pick up candy. Light bulb. Oh my gosh, my mind is corrupt. I keep wanting to say light brush. I don't know why. To be fair, because the thing about the name, it rhymes so well. You know, like it works so good. But yeah, light bulb ends up going over with Marshmallow into the cave itself. Which is cool. I like seeing light bulb lit up. Not something that gets done too much in the modern times. I mean, light bulb is blue now, just to understand. So yeah, no, we're not really using the light bulb for many reasons. In the show itself, which is cool. You know, it was always one of the critiques. Like, I'm gonna be honest, original me, back 6 to 5 years ago when I originally watched it, Inanimate Insanity, I wasn't a big fan. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I wasn't a big fan because back then I really liked the concept of an object show, more than I was necessarily too smart enough to really understand a lot of the dynamics and a lot of the story, right? And even though I saw a story and I thought it was cool and certain aspects of it, I really wanted the object show part of it to be really highlighted, right? With like the characters being objects and them using that to their advantage, right? That's why, like, I think one of my favorite series that happened was like there was this one like IRL thing where it's like it's like BFB battle. or something. I don't know if this is a thing that anybody knows. There's like a thing called B&B Battle, right? Where it was like an IRL thing, and like you put up there was like a freaking image, like a paper cutout of the two things, and then they had a battle. But it was really interesting because at least they got to imagine them as the actual objects, and they got to battle with the object's capability in their mind, right? But yeah, one thing that in my opinion, I has always kind of suffered from is that the objects don't really act too much like their objects themselves, right? Like, I mean, the last time the light bulb actually lit up, I have no idea. I have no idea when that was. It's probably more recent than I expect. However, like, it's just kind of nothing. That same thing goes for like paintbrush on that same the spectrum. It's like, yo, when's the last time paintbrush was used as a paintbrush? No times. Like, I don't know when that happened. But yeah, that's what like old me used to like. If I'm not mistaken, my favorite character was Yin Yang, because Yin Yang was the one character who is obviously like that, right? Who's obviously like impacted by what their object is, so it's super noticeable, right? Which was why that was one of my favorite characters. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why original me wasn't too fond of Inanimate Insanity. However, to be fair, season 1 is doing some attempts at it, especially with Marshmallow, Balloon, and Light Bulb. So yeah, that's cool. Anyways, Light Bulb runs away. Marshmallow stays there. We end up having some other fellas. Yeah, Light Bulb ends up. Or in a way, Marshmallow ends up getting that in. Then we end up having Taco and Pickles try to drop down the cliff to see if they can grab the ones in the water. No, they can't. For some reason, nobody can jump a distance farther than 2 meters. But yeah, eventually Marshmallow drops by from the monster in the thing with a bucket load of freaking candy. However, Apple drops by their non-candy, and it ends up having the number go down instead because they were trying to cheat, which is bad. However, yeah, so they end up having 41, and then they have 40 pieces. And then what happens? Hold on, wait a minute. So yeah, they end up losing anyways, right? Yeah, they end up losing. Hold on, I'm trying to clock in. It's only at 41, yeah. So they lose anyways. Yeah, last second, Salt and Pepper, who are now super skinny, end up binging, and then they end up now becoming super fat. With their assets changing and everything to reflect this. Yeah, so this is interesting. So like, all right, I'm gonna be honest. I am like okay, here's the deal. My Twitter timeline is like very randomly Inanimate Insanity core. I don't know why. I don't interact with it. But like it's very Inanimate Insanity. So I see the discourse that happens on there. And I saw certain people kind of disliking this scene. Like before I watched it, so I didn't know what I was getting into. But like, I saw certain people disliking the scene because it's a play on like it made people with like eating disorders feel weird, because of the whole like situation. Or like, oh, they become super skinny and then they binge, which is eating all at once. However, like, gonna be honest, after watching this episode, fully aware of that as a detail, right? Like fully accepting, like, yo, is this thing gonna be bad? Did they make a mistake? What did they do? No, not really. I'm gonna be 100% honest. Like, they're obviously just talking about diets, right? You know, like the thing that's like a common craze that people do, right? You know, like around that like type of person that Salt and Pepper are. You know, they're like, oh my god, I'm on a diet. You know, I only eat guacamole on bread. That's like a thing. You know, like it's very clearly just a play on that. You know, like it's not a joke about eating disorder, because like the thing about it is that, like, it's not a joke about eating disorders because they don't have an eating disorder. They are just like they just don't eat that day and then are super hungry, right? Like, do they need to do all that with the assets? Probably not. I mean, they do the same thing with Pickles at the start of the episode, and it's not a problem because they don't do the acid gag, right? However, like, I still think that, I mean, it's taking a little bit overboard, you know? Like, it's really not. I mean, I understand if you'd feel awkward by a scene like that, because of course, you know, everybody's personal experience will sieve into how they see the media, right? like it's something that has made you awkward in the past, ends up happening to a character on screen, you might feel awkward by it. But like, I don't necessarily think that's the content itself's fault, right? Like I really think, you know, you got to give some of these things a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, right? Well, like, yes, it made you awkward, and you can like say that. However, I don't think that makes the episode itself the problem, because, you know, like it's very clearly just a gag on like they didn't eat because they're doing diet, right? Which is like a thing that people do because I want to look so skinny, right? Which is like that thing that like teenage girls want to do. That's like a thing, you know. And then instead. And then they do think the acid gag maybe a little bit much, but that's at the end of the day, that's kind of the joke of the scene, right? It's kind of like the pickle scene isn't as funny directly, right? Because they're doing like doesn't have the acid gag on it, because the actual being hungry part wasn't the joke. The joke was the cannibalism part, right? Then this part, the actual eating, was the joke. So they end up doing that. So they end up doing the assets for that to happen. So yeah, I really think you gotta give it a little bit more benefit of the doubt, right? You don't, and everything that happens is to be evil. You know, sometimes y'all, like, you don't have to be evil. Oh my god, they made a joke about it. It's like, no, you got pay attention. Like, it's really not. It's really not. It's about something else. Come on, it's about something else. And yes, it might inflict weirdly on people with eating disorders because it can remind them of their own experiences, and then it hurts, and they also use the word binge, right? Which, okay, yeah, perfectly understandable, but you don't gotta be calling them evil for it. Just say that joke was a little weird. You know? Like, come on, y'all. Come on, y'all Twitteries, y'all Xers, okay? What are we doing? What are we doing out here? All right. Okay. Now that we covered that, we can have that OJ and Bomb end up, since they got candy for that team, end up being immune. And then the other fellas up for elimination, maybe. We will see, because the episode gets cut off by Mifo and 4S starting to stop them and having the epic battle. Do I remember what happens in actual episode 8 of Inanimate Insanity? No, I don't. I'm gonna be fully honest, I really don't. What happens in it? I like how the recommendations give me the actual episode 7 from 14 years ago. Like, go watch, become informed for object catch. Like, no, okay, I get it, but chill. But yeah, I mean, like, it's a detail. Shall we quickly check out how many episode in? Let's see. Foreseeing the future. Yeah, and then the fella comes in. They're gonna have a battle. Yeah, they're gonna have a battle, and then it's gonna be epic, and then they're gonna do the animation. Yeah, they're gonna do that. I don't remember if 4S like wins or not. I'm gonna be fully honest, but like, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Seeing 4S again is cool. I think 4S is cool. So yeah. And that's the remaster. What do you think of the current state of the remaster? I think the current state of the remaster is fine. It keeps itself, I'd say, on a relatively neutral level, right? Because, like, the thing that it does is I don't think it necessarily tries to force itself onto any specific vibe, right? So I think it does indeed, I think, lose a little bit of personality to original season 1, right? Because original season 1, yes, it's incredibly scuffed, like to a level where it's probably like worth it to remake while something like BFDI isn't. II season 1 is scuffed, so that's like a thing. Yes, however, it does still lose personality to it, because at least that one had its own vibe going on. You know, this ends up being much more neutralized, right? Especially with like less animation done. However, they do still try to use this season 1, right, as kind of the grounds to do subtle characterizing, right? Like, you'll notice it with how Taco has a lot of subtle characterizing going on, right? Same thing goes for even like for example, that scene with Teddy Bear and Belle. You see, it's very subtle characterizing for what they're currently doing, right? Same thing goes with characters like, Taco and Nico. Yeah, I already said Taco. Taco and Nico. Those two have not interact. Those two do not interact. That is not a Taco and Pickles. Oh my god, bro. I need to stop talking at all. Or some other characters, but it ends up being pretty cool for that matter. Or like, MePhone as well. I think that they have MePhone, like, the things that MePhone does here are much more purposeful than the things MePhone would have done in season 1 original, right, when it comes to specific movements and everything. And even that scene, for example, where Right Bulb waves her future self, again, it's all that stuff. It's all that useful stuff. that ends up doing it. However, because it plays a lot on subtlety in how the season 1 kind of plays out, I don't know if anybody watching it immediately from season 1 would just be capable, would just immediately feel those, right? It'll be useful to watch, to look back on. However, as just an episode without it for knowledge, season 2, 3, and 4, I feel like it's good enough, definitely good enough, I think, in my opinion. However, I could see why somebody might not still be super engaged, but we'll have to see. We'll really have to see with time, you know, like especially when stuff like season 1 remaster ends. You know, like when that stuff ends and it becomes like the official way to watch II season 1, they're gonna have to see how that works for future. You know, like how much that manages to engage new audiences, how much that manages to just do anything. You know, like we're just gonna have to see that, because for the meanwhile that season 1 remaster is still ongoing, it's not very useful for new audiences, because they're eventually gonna have to switch back to 14-year-old animation that's so much worse that it's not even comparable. So it's like it's kind of impossible to compare for now. So until then, it's not really going to be very useful to new viewers. However, we're going to need to see when it's complete how useful it's going to be to new viewers. You know, we're going to need to give it to the reaction streamers and stuff. And yeah, that is the II Season 1 remaster. Yeah, I felt like giving a little bit of a conversation either way, because at the end of the day, it's a big release that happens in object shows. I do believe there's going to be another section. It's not going to be too big, but we're going to see what is the next section I'm going to do for the video next, because, you know, we're going to see. I currently don't know what it is, but yeah, let's flip over to that. Alright, well, next up we're going to take a moment to discuss a couple of Magic 8 updates. Yes, because Magic 8 has released 3 things for 3 different shows while we were off and about. Starting off here with 7 days ago, where they released Scrapped Episode 1. I have no idea what it is. It's got 2K views. Released a week ago. It is the oldest of the keep ups that we gotta do, so just get it done with. It's 27 seconds long, so it'll be pretty fast, and then we'll see what else there actually is. Go. Alright, well, we have another one of those mysterious episode 1s that are short and they introduce a concept. So, after a doorway opens, this bread character falls in, presumably a scrapped character, apparently. And they're just chilling there, and we get to vote on what the hell happens to them. We will apparently we can give them an item or a consumable. We could give them a character, but there's no recommended characters yet, which is interesting, because wouldn't there be other scrapped characters? Surely we scrapped more than one. And then a recovery center, we don't know how much it costs. Yeah, I mean, interesting concept. I don't really know, however, what would happen, because, I mean, like, if you're giving them a consumable, what, they're gonna get an apple, and what are they gonna do with it? Like, we're gonna have a, like, 1-minute video of them eating an apple. Like this is not, I'm gonna be honest, this does not sound like exhilarating content, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt on this one, okay? Interesting idea for sure. I guess we'll see how it goes. Anyways, we cannot seemingly go over to the next thing, because it's actually, I didn't realize that it was the season 5 of everything, so we're gonna need to watch that the next time. So the extra thing that we're gonna watch this time is gonna be the next 2 episodes of Runners, but I will quickly go to the next section and introduce it properly. Alright, next up we're just gonna watch the 2 quick episodes of Runners. So Runners is the Maze Runner inspired show that Quonndog started a couple days ago, where episode 1 dropped by the cereal bowl or oatmeal, I don't perfectly remember what it was, ended up being spawning in the maze, and we got to vote to drop somebody in, or send somebody. Let's see what happens in it. Let's go. Alright, that is Runners 2, so the second person, the trash recycling bin person, ended up dropping down. They can't move properly by themselves, which is cool. I mean, like, okay, so oh, that sounds so wrong. It's a unique character trait, okay? Which is interesting. So they end up just kind of asking what the hell is going on. It's interesting how Serial immediately clocks from them dropping down that somebody drops down every week, which is interesting. However, yeah, it seems that somebody drops down every week and they're trying to get supplies and stuff because they're trying to leave away with the maze. So apparently they explore the maze, it goes on for miles, and there's something in there. So there's kind of entities, they have to do, that Roblox game where you have to dodge the evil head. Yeah, you're gonna need to deal with one of those, it's just, it's part of life. But like, yeah, so they're doing that, and then we get to send the next person, and they've been feeding off the sack of potatoes, and yeah, I mean, they're trying their best. We'll see who we get to send in, a Shroomy, Dinosaur, Egg, or Coral. I think, I mean, by the next thumbnail, I think Dinosaur Egg joins the thumbnails. I'm gonna be absolutely for real. They are very much so spoilers. I'm not gonna lie. We need some non-spoilery thumbnails for once. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but I don't know. For as long as these episodes remain as 1 minute, I mean, like, how much progression are we realistically gonna get to see? If we get like one sentence worth of lore, like I don't know. It's kind of weird. But hey, look, I'm gonna let it cook, okay? I'm gonna allow it to do its thing, okay? And I'm going to go to episode 3 of Runners. Episode 3 of Runners is titled Fix School. To be fair, they are getting longer by like 20 seconds each time. We're getting there slowly. Alright, here we go. Alright, that is Runners 3. So, in today's game show, we have Serial doesn't know that a person that just randomly teleported into a box is confused about where they are, how they got there, and anything else. And instead starts shouting at them for, expectedly running away when people start shouting at them right when they wake up in a mysterious location. Really giving kidnapper vibes here, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it's not a great performance here from the fella. I'm not gonna lie. The recycling bin is not loud enough to be capable of really changing the events that happen here, and they can't physically intervene either. So they just have to watch Serial mildly bully this egg for running away from the guy that was screaming at them. No, I'm gonna lie. It's definitely a bit of a rough one. But yeah, okay, so I think what's going on is, yeah, this fella's chicken, what do we don't have much time. Oh yeah, so, okay, so the box closes every couple of minutes, and the box arrives with supplies, I think is what's going on. So they get like a bag of supplies alongside the person, every week, I think is what's going on, so they have to quickly fetch it out before the box closes, right? Which is, I believe, what is going on, which is interesting. I mean, I guess, yeah, we'll have to see, right, what goes on with that. But yeah, it's interesting. However, I'm still kind of a little bit, I'm unsure when this is gonna start, like locking in, because they seem to be very much so planning, right? They're trying to plan to get supplies and everything while trying to figure out what to do. But like, at the end of the day, this show is gonna need to lock in at some point, and I don't know when it's gonna be, because it's one of those things where it's like, I see the idea, I see the vision here, I just need to try to understand when is it that we're going to get more perspective on what's going on. When is it that we're going to see an exploration, see an environment other than this patch of grass for 1 minute, when are we going to get like any explanation or details on what we saw, right? On what these people saw, right? Like, are we going to get a story? Are we going to get a current status update on the plan, on the supplies, or anything? Because currently we don't get much information to work with, right? Like, to be fair, it's kind of like Nate the Snake, but to be fair, that's the same criticism I have of Nate the Snake a lot. It doesn't, like, I can't theorize that much if I don't get any information to theorize with, right? They could just say, yo, they get in supplies and there's an evil thing in there and they're trying to figure out how to leave, and I haven't watched Maze Runner the movie, so that might also be an implication. However, like, it's still, I currently don't have much knowledge on the matter, which is certainly a little bit unfortunate, but like, it's, I guess it goes how it goes. I don't really know. Yeah, all right, that is all for Runners. Yeah, that's all the comments I can say about Runners right now. The next thing might be an outro. I'll see. Alright, the last thing for today, yeah, it's gonna be another short video. I'm kinda having a little bit of trouble, making very long episodes lately. My bad, chat. It is going to be episode 8 of the Object Show sequel. That is filler, double debuting at dime. Jesus Christ. Because last time we had the non-competition episode of the show, we got to discover some things. Questiony and Color Paper went to the cafe and had a good time. We got some shipping fuel to work with there. The fellas down in the elimination area found the computer. Well, actually, one of them found the computer. Rubbish found the computer that allows for the creation of the contestants from Logie. The other people are getting stoned out, and all the 1 billion recommended characters were up for voting. My prediction was Alphabet Soup, I remember it. Episode 8, let's see who ends up debuting. Let's go. Alright, that is episode 8 of the Object Show sequel. That is filler. So, it's a little bit of a break from the relatively lore-heavy other episodes that took place. This one is very much so purely technical in the sense that we're just doing the thing that has to be done, right? Which is showing the debut, which just so happens to take a while in the style that the show shows votes, because, it has characters talk and everything, right? So it kind of complicates the situation. And then, of course, the challenge after, but then if the debut takes a long time, the challenge has to be extremely simplified, so you end up having the challenge that the freaking characters choose who is safe alongside them, the people who join, right? Even though, again, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, hold on, were they watching the show? How do they know? It's kind of like one of those things. However, we'll start off here with Shu starting immediately going, I don't want air horn. Air horn's annoying. Foreshadowing. But yes, we end up having ourselves the debuting. So we end up having 24 votes, which is not a lot. Gonna be 100% honest. I mean, considering there's 20 characters, yeah, it is not a very high amount of votes. Gonna be, it's interesting. I wonder what happened, because that is kind of weird. That is kind of weird. That is kind of odd. I don't know how that's happened. Like, did really nobody try to get their friends to vote? Everybody does that. What? I would have done that. Like, come on, bro. Okay. But either way, we end up having a bunch of people get 0. Again, I don't really think that debut votes really have much to do with the quality of the potential contestant, because again, like Alphabet Soup got 0. Alphabet Soup was definitely the coolest. And I mean, like, no shame here to Mr. 3 here. However, I just gotta point out that an image of the letter 3 that you Google is not the best character idea ever in the world. I just have to point it out. There's no unique mechanic to it. At least with an air horn, there is a unique mechanic. But at least number 3, there's not a unique mechanic. And then 3 didn't even get 3 votes. What? This is shameful. I need 3 to meet 3 from BFDI. Okay, I need the cameo to happen. You're gonna need to hit up Jack and Jellyfish. It's just a requirement. No, I'm joking. But yeah, we end up having the new intro, which is an interesting intro because we just end up having air horn in it properly, and then 3 just drops in at the very last second. Just freaking pops in. And then, well, let's see. So, we have ourselves the favorite contestant poll, which gets 1 person immune, which is Fing, apparently, with 5 votes. Yet again, there's so much, like, variance to these numbers, bro. Like, in the freaking vote, and nearly everybody got 3 votes in the debut vote. Here, everybody gets 3 votes. 3! The number 3, maybe 3 should join this show. Everybody keeps getting 3. Like, what are we doing? But yeah, okay, they get to pick 2 more people to be immune alongside them. I think that there's an interesting situation that could be made that I don't think we take advantage of in having these characters not know the other people, right? Because, like, think about it. Imagine they were like judges and everybody had to come in, do their presidential speech, and then it's a proper challenge, right? Earn immunity from the people that weren't fucking here. Because then you want the air horns to have, damn man, you were weak, but you grew. And it's a, how the fuck do you know? Like, what are you on? where did you acquire this knowledge? You know? Like, I understand that the real reason is probably, oh yeah, but you see, Loki did a Me Phone 4 and then put them with the memories of the show. Okay, I get that, but it'd be cooler if they did it, right? Like, it's kind of one of those things. But yeah, Airhorn ends up picking the fella, and 3 ends up picking colored paper. Why? I don't fucking know. They don't even explain that one. At least Airhorn gave an explanation. 3 would just say, yeah, color paper. And then color paper ends up giving up their immunity to questioning, which I'm just saying also probably shouldn't be allowed. I mean, it was not your decision. You should have asked 3 to switch it. Just say it. But, I'm not a big fan of how these rules are being enforced. But like, okay. I don't know why I'm making this noise. It is midnight. I am being weird. I don't know. You'll notice that the more I cover a show in different days, the more unhinged I get with my discussion of it. And that's what happens with this show. I mean, it's probably, considering regular options that it's probably like, over 7 unique days I talked about it. So I just kind of got more comfortable with the show. So I just kind of chat more shit about it. But yes, the other fellas are up for elimination. I mean, Shoeshock was the mean one, so presumably they might get eliminated. But we're gonna need to see. And then at the end we have our little scene where, Questiony really likes him, really likes colored paper, and then Film was like, "Yo, you should tell him. We want his colored paper. Colored paper won't do weird. Like, they're super nice." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not ready. Gonna need a." But that's made for like episode 11. No, they don't say that. But yeah, they end up solid. But yeah, Filmer gets the recommendation, and Questiony might get to tell them sometime. We'll see. I mean, they wanted to say that in episode, they weren't ready, but to be fair, they were gonna say that like last episode, right? Like they were gonna say that, oh, I had this weird feeling, but then Filmer interrupted them, right? So I feel like they should probably be, realistically, I'd expect it to be sooner rather than later, especially with color paper up for elimination, which is interesting. I mean, like, imagine the universe where color paper got eliminated. It would be GG. That would be so over. I mean, we're in the presumption that doesn't happen. However, look, the 3 people are not that hard to get. if that's the no voting count that we need to get. Like, I don't know. You better watch your toes. Okay, watch your toes, because it might get a little complicated here for these longer plot lines. But yeah, okay. That is episode 8 of the Audio Show sequel. That is filler. I mean, it's cool. I kind of nitpicked a shit ton of it because there was not much else to do about it. It was kind of, there wasn't too much lore to discuss. It was just kind of technicalities. But yeah, these 2 fellas have joined. We'll see how they perform in future episodes as actual contestants. And hopefully, we'll get to see more of what's going on in the basement as well, because that's interesting. Okay, that's all. Let's do ourselves outro. Alright, and now will be all for today's installment of Object Catch-Up. Gonna be honest, yeah, these past few days have definitely been a little bit more on the, what if I didn't do Object Catch-Up? In the sense of, I haven't been too overly motivated to do it. However, we're getting it mostly done. I feel like of course, I'm behind on requests. I'm behind on things I gotta keep up on. I'm just behind in general. However, look, I'm trying out here. Hopefully, we're getting there. Sometime soon. Yesterday I did the Twitch Drummers versus Sorry You're in Fear, which was a very cool video. I recommend you watch it. I personally found it very enjoyable to do. So, of course, if you want to see it, go watch it, so that way I'll know that there's people who watch that stuff. But yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, I don't no idea what we're doing next. I'll try to start getting some longer catch-ups out. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of currently on a little bit of a low riding wave, as you say. I'm kind of, how do I best describe what I'm currently at? I'm riding a relatively low tide right now, right? Because it's I feel like if I do too much, I'm definitely going to be burnt out soon. I don't want to do that. So I'm riding the low tide. I'm trying to do not too much, right? Do what is needed, but not too much. Maybe sprinkle in a couple of other projects, and then eventually, when something drops and I get the motivation for it, I start like locking in. When I need to do something like big. And the past few days I haven't really needed to do something major. So yeah, all right, that is all for the shows that we watched. We are all caught up. See you next time. Goodbye.